Story 1. The room with one mirror left 3:17 a.m. A roadside motel with 9 broken mirrors, and one that remembers faces. He thought it was just another client, but the reflection was already waiting for him. The motel sits off a silent stretch of Highway 61, where even the insects sound half asleep. The manager gave me a brass key and didn't ask questions, not unusual for this kind of booking. The air inside the room was thick with dust and something older, like the memory of perfume that had dried on the walls. 9 mirrors hung crooked, all cracked in different patterns. Only one remained whole. It faced the bed like it was waiting for a show I didn't remember agreeing to perform. She was already there when I arrived, a woman sitting near the mirror, the lamp behind her painting gold on the edge of her mouth. Our shoulders almost touched when I crossed the room to drop my bag. Her scent was clean, recent, the kind that comes from freshly pressed sheets. The light caught her reflection before it caught her. For a second, the mirror's version of her seemed to breathe first. She asked if I wanted the light lower. I reached past her toward the switch and my sleeve brushed her arm. The fabric rasped once, soft, deliberate, like it wanted to leave a mark. When the bulb dimmed, the mirror caught the two of us in its center. I saw my hand still hovering near her, though in the reflection, it was closer. Too close. I stepped back and the glass lagged a fraction of a second behind, as if it had to remember where to put me. Her voice came next, low, measured, a warmth that found the edge of my ear before the words did. She said she liked this room because it keeps secrets. The sentence ended too near my skin. Her breath left a small circle of heat that didn't fade right away. In the mirror, her mouth kept moving even after she stopped speaking. I told myself it was a trick of the lamp, the angle, the hour. But the sound of her whisper, it didn't stop when mine did. We moved to the small table by the window. The blinds trembled in the draft though the air felt still. She poured wine into 2 motel glasses, the kind that always taste faintly of soap. I watched the mirror behind her instead of her eyes. My reflection seemed more interested than I was, leaning forward when I hadn't moved. Each time I blinked, it edged a little nearer, like the delay between thought and action was closing in on itself. The table was narrow, our knees met beneath it. Not a hard touch, just the pressure of proximity refusing to apologize. I expected her to move first. She didn't. The warmth through the fabric of her dress met the cold air leaking from the vent above us. Between them, my heartbeat started to sync with something else. A faint tapping from the wall, perfectly timed, like the mirror was learning my pulse. A strand of her hair fell across her face when she laughed, a sound that didn't belong to this kind of hour. Without thinking, I reached to move it aside. My fingertips caught the edge of her temple, and her skin trembled under the touch, a small shiver that seemed to travel up my own arm. The mirror brightened as if pleased, light blooming around her reflection before fading back to dull yellow. When I looked again, her image hadn't blinked. We stopped talking at the same time. The air between us grew thick, tuned to the rhythm of 2 quiet breaths. Even the clock radio on the nightstand seemed to listen. I could feel the silence pressing its weight across the room, like it wanted to be part of whatever came next. Her reflection turned its head first. Ours followed a heartbeat later. Somewhere deep inside the walls, something sighed back. When I finally looked away, my reflection didn't. It stayed facing her even as I turned toward the window. For a second I thought my eyes had adjusted wrong, that fatigue had blurred the sense of where I ended. But then it smiled, just slightly, a polite acknowledgement from something that had learned my expression a little too well. I froze, waiting for the trick to reveal itself. The mirror only breathed, faint fog pulsing from somewhere deep inside the glass. She rose from the chair and crossed behind me, the soft drag of her sleeve tracing my shoulder. I felt her warmth even after she was gone. When I turned, the room was empty, but the scent of clean skin clung to the air, too close, too new. The glass held 2 figures now, one standing where I was and one just behind, almost touching. I didn't move. I couldn't. The warmth on my neck stayed long after the air went cold. I felt the shift before I heard it, the sound of a breath that wasn't mine. Then her voice, close enough to miss the edge of my ear, "Don't look away yet." The words slid through me too soft to resist. She was behind me, I was sure of it, but when I faced the room, no one waited there. In the mirror, though, she leaned in, her lips at my neck, her whisper repeating itself from somewhere deeper. That echo didn't fade when I stepped back. It came from behind the glass. I wiped at the fog with my sleeve. The figure in the mirror stayed put, my face but not. It smiled like it had finally caught me in the right light. I left the key on the table and stepped outside into the thin blue of morning. When I glanced through the window, the mirror reflected nothing at all, not even the room. Just a blank surface waiting. Have you ever seen yourself stay when you walked away? Story 2. Key under skin. Some nights, the key they leave behind still carries body heat. This one was warmer than skin, and it opened more than a door. 2:59 a.m. The city looked asleep from 33 floors up, every window a closed eyelid. The glass walls reflected more of me than the skyline. Suit half-buttoned, smile rehearsed, pulse pretending calm. My last client had left minutes ago. The bed was still warm. In the center, a small brass key waited, catching the red from the exit sign like a heartbeat. Didn't touch it right away. The air carried her perfume, sharp, floral, expensive, and it mixed with the faint electricity of linen cooling. When I finally reached for the key, my sleeve brushed the sheet. The warmth underneath felt human, recent. A strand of hair clung to my wrist. It smelled clean, freshly showered, too recent to belong to memory. For a second I thought I heard her laugh, soft, behind the mirror. I dressed slowly, out of habit more than modesty. My fingers found the collar she'd straightened earlier. It still held the ghost of pressure, faint as static. Adjusting it, I felt the fabric warm against my skin, a trace of her timing still inside the gesture. It was supposed to fade after each session. Tonight it didn't. I heard her voice again, too close this time. Not from memory, not from the room. Just a low note that slipped under my breath, right against my ear. "Don't lock it yet," it said. The sound was almost a vibration, like the moment before a whisper becomes contact. I turned, but the mirror only offered me my own mouth, half open, listening. I tried to reset the scene as we're trained to do. Straighten pillows, fold sheets, erase fingerprints from glass. Professional order keeps the ghosts quiet. But when I passed the bedroom safe, a faint metallic sound came from inside. Not the usual latch settling, more like a jingle, light and deliberate. 2 keys, not 1. I froze, hand on the safe door. The air had thickened, humid despite the hum of the vents. Kneeling, I steadied myself on the carpet, and brushed my knee against something warm. The imprint of another leg lingered there, invisible but undeniable. The touch was brief, accidental maybe, but it left a tremor that didn't belong to me. I leaned closer to the safe. Its keypad light blinked green, though I hadn't touched it. A draft passed behind me, brushing the side of my neck. My hair shifted. Instinctively I reached up, and felt a strand being moved, not by me but with precision. The fingers were light, deliberate, like someone correcting a small mistake. My skin answered before my mind could. The room fell still. Even the city noise outside retreated, as if embarrassed to intrude. I could hear both of us breathing, the rhythm uneven, shared, confused about direction. The glass walls seemed to listen, holding every exhale in suspension. Somewhere between one breath and the next, the key on the bed turned by itself, a soft metallic sigh. I told myself to stop imagining things, to finish the reset and leave. The safe was empty when I finally opened it. No second key, no reason for the sound. Still, a trace of warmth lingered on the metal, as if something alive had just been there. I pressed my hand against it, needing proof of temperature. It was the same warmth that had seeped through the sheet earlier. When I lowered my hand, the scent came with it. Her perfume, only lighter, older, as though filtered through time. It clung to my wrist where no one had touched. I rubbed it off once, twice. The smell deepened, sharper now, pulling at memory. I turned toward the elevator, thinking of the rules. Never stay after the scent turns. But the key on the bed was still glowing faint red under the exit sign. The elevator chimed without a call. A single tone, flat and wrong. I turned, half expecting her reflection in the glass. Nothing. Only the red digits frozen at 33. Then came the sound again, closer this time, a breath near my ear. "Don't forget your key," she whispered. The words stirred the air against my skin, warm and intimate. I faced the door and found the key already in my hand. I don't remember picking it up. I slid it into the nearest lock, the service door by the kitchen. It turned halfway before resistance met me. From the other side, a hand pushed it back, slow but certain. I stepped back, heart miscounting. The elevator opened behind me, waiting, empty. When I finally left, the key stayed in the lock, pulsing faintly. Later, the concierge told me this floor has been closed for months. Would you turn a key that still feels warm? Story 3. The tie left behind. They say clothes remember things, heat, scent, the weight of a touch. But what if something you wore remembered more than you ever gave it? Dawn painted the hallway in that pale, forgiving light hotels never earn. I walked slow, jacket half buttoned, shoes quiet on the carpet. The night had ended clean, transactional, almost gentle. Then I saw it in the mirror by the elevator, a tie around my collar that wasn't mine. Dark silk. Knotted perfectly. My pulse missed a beat, as if the fabric had memory. It smelled fresh, pressed, folded, someone's perfume still living in the knot. I touched it, thumb tracing the seam. The scent wasn't hers. Too warm, too close. For a second, it felt like the tie had just been adjusted by a hand that never left the room with me. In the elevator's reflection, the knot looked tighter than before. I tried to loosen it, just a quick tug, but the silk resisted, sliding instead of giving. I caught my own fingers trembling as I adjusted the collar, brushing my neck where the fabric had warmed the skin. The air smelled faintly of starch and perfume, just enough to make it feel recent. My phone buzzed as the doors opened. Her name didn't appear, only private line. I lifted it halfway before realizing the ringtone wasn't mine. It was coming from behind me, faint, through the hallway speaker near the ceiling. Then a woman's voice, low, deliberate, close enough I could almost feel the warmth shape the words. "You left something, didn't you?" The corridor felt longer than before. The lights hummed overhead, steady but dim, and every door looked the same. I told myself she might have forgotten something, maybe sent someone to return it. Still, I kept touching the tie, like checking if it was real. The texture was too warm for fabric left behind, too alive for silence. Down in the lounge, the night clerk lifted his head as I passed. He smiled, polite, unreadable, and pointed toward the phones on the wall. I sat, pretending to check messages. My knee brushed the corner of the desk. Then another knee met mine just lightly from the other side. No one sat there. The pressure stayed a second too long, then eased as if deciding to wait. The phone behind the desk rang once. The clerk didn't move. I leaned closer, trying to read his badge, when a strand of hair slipped into my face. It wasn't mine, too long, too fine. Instinctively, I brushed it aside, but my fingers met air first, then something colder like static before a storm. My neck prickled. The perfume deepened, drifting from nowhere I could point to. The sound stopped. The whole lobby seemed to listen with me. My breath came out louder than I wanted, rough against the quiet glass. For a moment, I thought I saw movement in the reflection. Two figures, not one. Ours breathing together. The tie shifted slightly at my throat, just enough to remind me which one of us was still wearing it. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. Each floor carried a different hum, plumbing, air vents, someone's alarm clock bleeding through the walls. I tried to focus on anything ordinary. When I reached my floor, my room door was already unlocked. The tie tightened just slightly, like a reminder when I reached for the handle. Inside, everything looked untouched. Bed made, lights dimmed. But the air was wrong. It carried warmth that didn't belong to me. I pulled the tie off in one motion, let it drop to the carpet. For a heartbeat, the skin beneath it still burned. The scent of the perfume lingered in the air, sweet and exact, as if someone had just leaned close enough to whisper. The phone rang again, hotel landline, same muted tone. I let it ring once, twice. On the third I picked up. Nothing. Just a breath, steady, almost touching my ear. Then a whisper, my own name, spoken in her rhythm, followed by a sound that came from behind me, not the receiver. I turned. The tie I dropped was gone. In the mirror, it hung around my neck again. It's not perfect. I ran to the hall. At the far end, someone disappeared around the corner, wearing my real tie, the one I'd left folded on the chair. Later, security told me I'd walked the corridor alone. Both ties visible in the footage. I still don't know which one was mine, or whose breath that was when the knot began to pull. If something you wore started pulling first, would you let it? Story 4. The perfume that stayed. 4 a.m. steam. I'd showered twice, but her perfume still floated in the air, warm, patient, and far too human to be memory. I meet people through scent. It sounds strange, but that's how I remember them. Top notes, bass tones, the air that clings after they leave. My job is personal consultation, and I read chemistry through fragrance. Tonight, though, something followed me home. I noticed it around 4 a.m. in the half-light of my bathroom. Same perfume, faint but alive, curling through the steam. I'd showered twice. The smell should have drowned hours ago. It was hers. Clean, deliberate, with a trace of citrus that always came back warmer. The bottle still sat on the counter from yesterday's meeting, a client who liked to test proximity. We'd stood close, shoulders nearly touching, her perfume rising in small pulses as she spoke. When she laughed, I felt the breath of it graze my cheek, soft, almost rehearsed. The cap clicked tight when she left. I know because I heard it. This morning I caught myself adjusting the bottle again. Habit maybe. The glass was cool, smooth as skin left too long under running water. I turned it once, then twice, trying to place what felt wrong. When my thumb brushed the cap, it loosened slightly, as if someone had used it during the night. I leaned closer. The scent was fresh, not faded. My fingers lingered on the neck of the bottle longer than I meant to, feeling a trace of warmth that shouldn't have been there. A voice memo came through while I made coffee. Unknown number. I hit play expecting silence, but a woman's voice filled the room, slow and near. She described the perfume exactly, soft on the skin, sharp in the air. Her tone moved like breath against my ear, and I felt the fine hair on my neck lift. She said my name at the end, quiet, almost affectionate. I stood there, phone in hand, half certain she was still in the apartment. I tried to work. Notes to file, invoices to send. Every few minutes the scent drifted back, breaking my focus like a finger tracing words on my skin. I opened the window thinking it was trapped air, but the city only pushed more of it inside, warm, fragrant, personal. I found myself whispering her name, testing the sound as if saying it might clear the air. It didn't. The bottle stayed silent on the counter, the label gleaming like a closed eye. That night I met a friend for dinner, hoping to reset. The restaurant was loud, but under the table, her knee found mine, and I froze. Not because of her. Because the same perfume wrapped around her wrist when she lifted her glass. She swore she wasn't wearing any. The air between us tightened, heavy and slow. I felt her skin brush again and knew, somehow, it wasn't her warmth I felt, it was someone else's memory trying to fit into the space she left. Back home I found the bottle turned. Just slightly, but enough that the label faced the mirror now. I told myself I'd done it without noticing. Still, when I reached to fix it, I stopped. A single strand of hair clung to the glass, not mine. I brushed it away and it stuck to my finger, fine and dark, smelling faintly of her perfume. I caught my reflection mid-gesture, hand still raised, and for a heartbeat the mirror showed two of me, one slower to move. I sat on the edge of the tub, lights dimmed, letting the steam gather again. The scent thickened in the humidity, richer, almost breathing. My chest followed its rhythm without meaning to. I spoke softly, asking no one to stop. Silence answered first. Then the click, that clean, deliberate sound of the bottle cap opening. The steam trembled. The smell deepened, close as a whisper behind my ear, and I swear I felt someone's breath test the space between skin and air. I stood, half-dressed, staring at the mirror's fog. A shape started to form in it, soft shoulders, a curve of light where lips might be. My own breath made the glass pulse, but the silhouette didn't follow my rhythm. When I whispered her name, it mouthed it back, slow, soundless, perfect. I reached out, leaving a trail in the condensation. The mark felt warmer than it should, as if someone had pressed upon there a moment before me. I grabbed the perfume bottle. Its weight felt wrong, heavier, denser, alive. I shook it, and the scent bloomed, saturating the air until breathing felt like swallowing her. I told myself it was just residue, just molecules. But when I tried to rinse my hands, the smell clung harder, sweet and stubborn. I dropped the bottle, glass splintering across tile. The fragrance didn't fade. It grew thicker, pressing into my skin like heat that wouldn't leave. Something brushed my shoulder then, light, deliberate. I turned toward the mirror again. The shape was closer now, a woman's outline inside the fog, her mouth at the level of my ear. The air around me pulsed once, and the voice came lower than before. Mine now. I felt the words more than heard them, vibrating against my skin. The scent was inside the walls, in the air, in me. Can a scent decide who wears it? I wasn't sure whose breath I felt anymore. Days later, I ride the train to work. Strangers glance up as I pass. A few smile, lips shaping a name that isn't mine. The carriage smells faintly of her, citrus, warmth, something human trying not to fade. I sit near the window and see my reflection blur with every flicker of light. It looks patient, expectant. I catch myself breathing shallowly, afraid to disturb the air. The perfume lingers still, as if waiting for its next body to choose. Story 5. Playback at 3:17. At 3:17 a.m., the tape recorder was already running. Only one problem, he hadn't pressed record yet. The red light on the tape recorder was already on when I noticed it. I hadn't touched it yet. The air conditioner hummed, steady and low, the kind of sound that keeps a cheap room breathing. I remember thinking how still she looked, like the moment before music starts. I told myself I'd hit record soon, just for safety like always. But the numbers on the display were already moving. She sat at the edge of the bed, tracing the cord of the lamp with one finger. Our shoulders nearly met when I leaned to plug in the charger. I caught a faint scent, clean, recent, like someone who just stepped out of the shower and wanted you to know. The light drew a thin glow across her mouth before she spoke. "You always record first?" she asked. I nodded, though the tape had been rolling for 2 minutes before I ever pressed rec. I adjusted her collar, pretending it was crooked. My fingers brushed the fabric, warm, alive from her skin beneath it. She smiled like she knew what I was doing but didn't stop me. "You always check," she said. "Professional habit," I answered. The tape's tiny reels kept turning, whispering against themselves, a pulse that didn't match the rhythm of the room. She leaned closer to ask something, her breath landing where words shouldn't. The question slid inside my ear, slow and deliberate. "Do you ever listen back?" Her tone made the air heavier. I almost said yes, but the sound of our voices tangled, hers folding into mine. On the tape, a reply came that I hadn't spoken yet. The overlap was faint, but I heard it, my own voice speaking before I did. I froze. The display still blinked red, steady as a heartbeat. "Maybe it's feedback," I said, half to her, half to the room. She tilted her head, listening, lips parted as if tasting the air. "You said your name," she murmured. I hadn't. Not to her. Not to anyone here. She shifted on the chair beside me, her knee brushing mine under the small table. It didn't move away. The static between us felt deliberate, heat wrapped in fabric. I replayed the last few seconds. On the tape she spoke first, then a pause, then my full name, the one I never gave her. My real one. I reached out before I realized it, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. The gesture felt automatic, rehearsed. Her skin reacted before she did, a small shiver under the light, like static waiting for release. She looked up at me, eyes too calm. "You shouldn't use that name here," she said. I wanted to ask how she knew it, but the room seemed to lean closer, listening. Silence grew between us. Not empty, just thick, aware. The tape clicked softly, waiting for a sound to feed on. I could hear both our breaths, synchronized as if we'd practiced. She didn't look away. Neither did I. The motel walls held their breath too, pretending not to exist. And in that stillness, a voice, mine again, whispered from the recorder, finishing the sentence I hadn't started. I stopped the recorder. The room didn't stop with it. The red light stayed on, steady, like it had its own current. "That's enough," I said, but my voice came half a second late, echoing behind itself. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile you give to someone who's already made a mistake. "You don't want to hear the rest?" she asked. I didn't answer. The reel spun anyway. When she stood, her shoulder brushed mine again, light, but it left a warmth that refused to fade. The scent of her perfume lingered long after she moved away, faintly sweet, newly applied. On the tape, a soft hiss filled the gap where her footsteps should have been. I pressed rewind. The machine clicked, then stopped on its own. A line played back, half breath, half voice. "I'll see you tomorrow." I turned. She was behind me again, closer than before. Her breath grazed the edge of my ear, warm enough to anchor me in place. "You promised you'd come back," she whispered. My skin pulled tight. Every nerve tried to remember if that had already happened. I watched her reflection in the dark TV screen, but there was no sound when her mouth moved. Only the faint rustle of tape, still turning. When I woke, the recorder sat where I'd left it, stop button half pressed, light still red. A new file blinked on the display, 03_18_2025.wave. Time stamped for tomorrow. I haven't played it yet. Not because I'm afraid of what's there, but because I already know my voice is waiting. Would you listen if your voice lied first?